Hey, what's up guys? I want to do a new Balisong video. Today's video is going to be focusing a little bit more on the kind of traditional Filipino style of flipping a Balisong. Today's Balisong of choice for the demo, just because I got it new, I've been playing with it a lot lately, is the Bradley Chimera 2. This one happens to be latchless. The previous owner had lost the latch, which is fine. I just threw on a glow-in-the-dark O-ring just for a physical reference while I'm flipping the knife. If I just happen to catch it in the air, I can kind of feel where that bite handle is, which is over here, without looking at it. This way I know where my edge is without looking at it. So anyway, that's the deal with that, in case you're wondering where the latch is and what the deal is with that little thing hanging on there. So anyway, today I'm focusing, like I said, on the Filipino style of flipping. If you're in the Balisong community, you've noticed that there's just a plethora of moves. A lot of them were born out of boredom. You start flipping Balisong, you learn certain moves, you say, that's cool, let me learn something new. And it progresses and it progresses, and you want to learn more and more and more. And eventually you get bored with what you have, so you want to try something new. That's part of the hobby. You know, getting to try new moves, not being so great at a certain move, and practicing and practicing and getting better and better, right? That's half the fun, is learning new stuff and the progression of getting better and having pretty much more versatility and variety in your change-up. And when you're doing freestyle flipping and stuff like that, it's nice to not see the same repetition over and over again, but rather see just a nice big fluent collection of moves. The Filipinos, originally, you know, the Balisong was part of their lifestyle. It wasn't just a hobby for them. It's something that they used out working in the field, you know, as their tool during the day, and at nighttime it was their weapon if they needed to defend themselves. Talking about some rough areas of town, you know, in a country where, you know, there's definitely not the same rules as here in the States. And their knife was mostly their tool, but it was also their weapon, and they were very fluent in using it as a weapon. So when they're flipping, they're not flipping necessarily for a hobby. Now, when I'm talking about the Filipino people, in this case, I'm also referencing a different era. I've never been in the Philippines. I don't know what they're like now. I'm just talking about what I've read in books, you know, and people I've talked to who know kind of the years past, I should say. Don't know what it's like today. I'm sure there's still plenty of people who carry Balisong and use it all the time, but I'm referencing more to, I would say, probably the 20s and 30s, that era of a time period. But anyway, like I said, I mean, it was their tool during the day, and it was their weapon at night if they needed to defend themselves. But there was a very distinctive way that they would flip, unlike I would call it the Americanized version, even though there's people all around the world who practice the Balisong arts. I think the Americanized version is definitely more flamboyant, a little bit more flashy. The Filipino style of flipping was a lot more about, I don't know, convenience. You know, they weren't trying to show off moves, but the way they were flipping was all about keeping the knife moving. Okay, it's kind of like different martial arts where you're in like a kata or something, where it's a fluid motion. It's the idea of, even when you're fighting, and I've talked about this in past videos, if you're talking about knife defense, you don't want to come in and slash and stop. Okay, you know, you don't pull your knife and slash. Of course that would work, it'd be effective, but the idea behind having a more effective attack would be coming in on different angles, different circles, okay, curving. Instead of coming in and slashing and stopping, now backtracking, you know, or pulling away and, you know, stabbing, these motions, these abrupt stop, go motions are less effective, and you're wasting more energy as opposed to being more fluent, circles, S's, stuff like that, particularly for knife fighting. When you're coming down, if you're coming down into a slash, you don't just stop and then retract back. When you come for a slash, you turn your knife out and then you come up back. You know, you cut your way out. It's about being effective the entire time you're using your knife for defense. Again, the Filipino mindset is keep your knife moving. Always keep your blade moving, but nothing flashy. Certain things you'll see, which is what I would consider Americanized, are aerials, okay, where you actually let go of your knife to catch it. That's not something that Filipino people, you'll see them do. Okay, they don't like aerials. You don't want to let go of your knife. That's probably one of the worst things you can do, particularly if you're using it to defend yourself. If you're playing around and just using your knife for a hobby and flipping, that's one thing. But you're talking about someone who may potentially have a life-threatening situation. The last thing you want to do is let go of it. Okay, it's like twirling your gun in a gunfight or something. It's unheard of. It's not practical. It's all for show and all for hobby. So that's something you will not see Filipinos do when they're flipping. Generally speaking, by the way, there's plenty of Filipino people who love balisongs and love the art of flipping and the hobby of flipping, and they will do all this stuff. I'm talking about, you know, this time-specific era. Well, another thing that I've noticed that Filipinos tend not to do are rollovers. Again, doing a rollover, a little bit more of a complicated move. It increases the possibility of you dropping your knife. You know, doing a rollover for us, as far as the hobby is concerned, is no big deal. And if we screw up, we drop it, again, no big deal. When your life depends on it and you're using your balisong for a defensive blade, you don't want to maximize the chance or possibility to drop or lose your knife. That should make sense, right? What you see a lot, like I said, is the fluent motion, okay? If you see someone do a freestyle flip and they're kind of flipping around doing their thing, sometimes they'll stop. Sometimes mid-flip, the knife will actually close. And then from this point, maybe they'll change their grips and do something different. Or maybe once the knife actually closes, they'll flip it back open and do something different. Again, going with the original theme of this is your life depending on using this knife, your knife doesn't shut, okay? If you watch Filipino flippers, their knife never really gets to a point where it's closed and they stop and then they have to reopen it. It's not like that. A lot of it's very fluent. What they'll do is they'll use their opposite hand or their off hand to constantly move it around, okay? Where you might see a ricochet like this, where we're ricocheting across our hands. They don't generally do that. What they'll do is they'll use their offhand and they'll keep momentum by pushing it back. Okay, knife's coming this way, they'll flop it back. A lot of circles, a lot of rotating. I don't know why it came out funny. Rotating, a lot of rotating. But yeah, circles, very fluent, not a whole lot of stop and go. Okay, this is the stop and go. Whereas if you're Filipino, for the most part, you could do a lot of this, rolling arounds. Okay, using the other hand to slap it back. You see a lot of this in Filipino flipping. It just comes naturally. Alright, so the whole idea behind it is you're moving the entire time. It's all circles. So at any point, if someone comes in, you're ready to get into a better grip and you can go with an attack. That's the concept behind it. So let me just show you real quick a little bit of Filipino Freestyle is what I would consider this. And if you watch some different YouTube videos, there are other people who are from the Philippines, and you'll see this style that's much more true to its original roots. And again, the whole concept here is just for knife fighting, pretty much. When you're using your balisong, you don't want to stop like that. Okay, you don't want to do a move and stop like we might do in our Americanized version. You know, stop a move, maybe change your grip a little bit, do something different, do a rollover, something cool. All right, stop, do a little aerial. You know, they don't do that. It's all very fluent. Okay, all circles. You've seen me do this routine often in the past. And the knife will speak to you. If you listen to the clicks, it's very fluent. But you can also tell I'm doing the exact same move each time, just by listening to it. Alright, so I adjusted the camera a little bit here so you can actually see the flipping, because most of the flipping that's going on is within the torso range. You won't see a whole lot of flipping up here or down low. It is generally in this section, okay? It's keeping it in the core of your body. It's keeping yourself nice and tight and in. You're not moving your arms way out. Again, you're not doing any aerials and letting go of your knife, and generally speaking, you're not doing any kind of rollovers, okay, which increases the possibility of dropping your knife. A lot of it is just circles. The idea behind this and the concept behind it is at any point in time while you're flipping this around, you can actually stop and come in and use your knife, okay, if someone's coming in for the attack. Okay, same like I said, like a kata or some kind of like a, you know, a constant movement in different kind of martial arts. I know that wasn't some lame white guy dance, although it may have looked like it. So anyway, just an example of what I perceived to be a traditional Filipino flipping style. Okay, again, you're moving your knife around a lot. This is one thing that I'll do often to kind of practice and keep the muscle memory good in my right hand, which I flip most often. I should practice more on my left, but I don't that often. Is just keeping with one simple combination. This is a very simple combination. I do this all the time. Okay, it's basically like a basic horizontal, but I ricochet back. If you listen to it, as I go faster, you can hear the consistency in the clicks. So something like that they can do, but what they're doing is they're constantly moving around. And what they'll do is they'll come over so it's fluent. So it's basically one just big circle. There's not a whole lot of points where my knife actually stops mid-rotation, okay? And as they're doing this at any point in time, I mean, they can come in and slash if they need to. But if they came in to slash, they wouldn't slash and stop and pull back, okay? They'd be flipping, maybe come in and slash and then come back out. You can stab, come back out. But what you see oftentimes is the integration with their other hand, okay? If you watch a lot of American flippers, this is what we'll do. We'll put our hand to the side and we won't move it. We'll flip and do all these kind of crazy moves and stuff, and it's like, okay. Sometimes you'll see someone, they get funky and they like do weird things with their hand. It's because they're so focused with this, they don't even realize what they're doing. And so sometimes you'll see someone, they'll just put their hand in their pocket, or they'll put it behind their back or something, you know, to the side so it doesn't look stupid. But it's basically because we're focusing so much on this hand. The Filipino style, at least the traditional Filipino style of flipping, they integrate their offhand constantly while they're flipping. Constantly, okay? The one big thing they'll do is actually transition, okay, into their other hand. And they'll do different moves, and they'll keep both hands active, okay? So you don't know where the knife's going to be. And again, years and years of practice, you can get really good with this. And if you're using this in a defensive manner, not only is it extremely intimidating, in my opinion, and I've said this before, if you're pulling a knife for self-defense, they shouldn't know it until they feel your blade inside their body, okay? Or come across and actually feel themselves fillet themselves open. That's how I feel a real defensive situation should occur, where someone's threatening you and you have your knife in your pocket or something, or, you know, on your person. You don't want them to know you have a knife until the last second. If they're truly causing a life-threatening situation to you and you feel your life's on the line, as they're coming at you, that's at the last moment you could take your knife out and do whatever you have to do. But I don't ever suggest in a defensive situation to take out something like a Balisong and start flipping it and say, hey, look at me, I'm Mr. Tough Guy, you don't want to mess with me. That's it's not a good idea in any way, okay? And 9 out of 10 times, if the person's armed with a gun, guess what? You just gave them a nice reason to shoot you. And they're going to get away with it just fine because you've posed a lethal threat with your knife, flipping it around. Don't call someone's bluff, okay? If you're going to take your knife out, you're going to take it out to use it. Don't take it out to threaten someone with no intentions of ever using it, because you're just asking for trouble. It may even get taken away and used on you. But what I was trying to talk about before is that with the Filipino style, they're constantly moving, and it is out, it is flashy, but it's effective. It's not just for flash, it's not just Hollywood. They're moving the knife around, all right, they're transitioning to other hands, they're constantly moving their hands around. You don't know where the knife's going to be, you don't know what hand it's going to be in, it's like a magic show. And trust me, if they know what they're doing and they've been doing this their whole life, which a lot of them have, when they're little kids, they're playing with these like toys. So besides actual transitions into the other hand and involving the other hand or offhand in the fight, you will also see a lot of ricochets with the offhand. Okay, if they're righty, like I am, you'll see a lot of action with that right hand, but the other hand doesn't just hang in the breeze and flop around. It's constantly moving around. They're actually moving their body and their arms while they're flipping, okay? But besides that, they're also using this other hand and integrating it to keep the momentum going, okay? Now, if you watch this, I'm going to do a little bit of a demo, and then I'm going to show it to you in slow motion. To like a novice or someone who's watching this for the first time, doesn't really know much about the Balisong, it might appear as if like I'm smacking the blade, but I'm not. I promise I'm never going to touch this blade. Also, if you're manipulating just with the safe handle, worst case scenario, you come in and you smack it the wrong way, you're smacking the spine of the blade here. Okay, here's our sharpened edge on the front. Okay, see our bite handle marked, sharpened edge and unsharpened edge. So worst case scenario, as long as you don't grab it the wrong way, if you screw this up like you're practicing yourself at home and you go to ricochet, you'll hit the spine of the blade. You will not cut yourself, okay? However, depending on how far the depth from your other hand, you could graze that tip across you and really rip yourself open with a little tip rip, as they call it, which is not fun. It's actually one of the worst wounds you can get from a knife because it just tears the skin open. It doesn't cut it, so it's going to be very hard to heal. Same as if you got cut with a serrated blade. But in keeping with the whole momentum of trying to keep the blade moving, okay, their hands are moving, their arms are moving, they're constantly moving around. And of course, if you don't know what you're doing, this is extremely dangerous. You're going to end up slicing, you know, your tendons open in your arm and all kinds of problems. You know, don't just grab a sharp knife and do this, okay? It takes lots of practice and lots of little steps. First is getting good with the different moves, you know, with your offhand, or excuse me, your dominant hand. Then the idea of moving your hands without even flipping your knife. Then you put everything all together and you actually get something that's kind of impressive looking, and you're not actually going to hurt yourself and cut yourself. But what you will see is a lot of this, where they're ricocheting off. Okay, and what they're doing is they're hitting that bite handle, and they're keeping the momentum going. But this has a lot to do with being aware of your knife. Okay, if you're not used to flipping a balisong, you're not going to be able to do this. You're going to end up smacking the spine of the blade, or you're going to, catch the tip and cut yourself, or God forbid, at some point you transition over to holding that bite handle, and then you go to ricochet, and you're literally just going to cut your hand open, or you ricochet on your dominant hand on the back of it and cut yourself that way. Do not just try this. Don't just grab a sharp knife and try this. All right, so a lot of movement with the hands. Now we're going to integrate all of that ricocheting with the offhand. Of course, when it's appropriate. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. I will have a new Balisong tutorial pretty soon, so if you like the Balisong videos, something to look forward to. But until then, hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and just remember one important thing: always expect the unexpected.